causes high anxiety, and you repeat that exposure, the anxiety gradually gets less. This is called habituation. So that the frequency of times that you face up to a problem, the less anxious you feel. Now that's been established theoretically and experimentally. What I mean by that, there are thousands upon thousands of research papers that demonstrate that repeated exposure leads to a lessening of the anxiety felt. Does that make sense to me? Now, what the problem is at the clinical level, how does the person deal with it? Now, the person's got to be ready for it. If you're not ready for it, such exposure causes havoc. See that? If the exposure is too high, the person will fail. Now, I must tell you about a therapeutic mistake I made some 25 years ago. I was seeing a young lady who was working. Some of you are perhaps old enough to remember the old green Commonwealth buildings at the top of Spring Street. When you were little, I'm sure you probably remember them. Anyway, they were very old buildings. Anyway, this young woman was working in this building, and on about the 8th floor, and the lift, she was waiting at the lift doors open, and she went forward to step into the lift, and somebody grabbed her from behind because there weren't no lift there. It was just fresh air, the shaft. Now, do you think she would probably developed a phobia about lifts? Well, she did, for sure. I was working out at Doncaster Shopping Town in those days, but the tower was pretty dominant. It's not very dominant today, you can't see it at all. But I was on the 6th floor, I think it was. Anyway, so we merrily took the lifts up and down, up and down, up and down, doing exposure. Then I took her into Collins Place, you know, where the double story is. And so we managed to get up to the 20th floor, you know, the ones where you went up the first 19, I think, and then the next one went 0 to 20 up, and then 21, 22, 23, 24. Has anybody been on that? So if anybody's phobic about lifts, that's the way to really either finish them off or... Anyway, when we got, I said to the lady, this is my mistake, I said to this young woman, now next week we're going to go up together to the 20th floor, and I'm going to be with you, we're going to go up together. Well, that was the last I saw her. Until about 19 years later, the phone rang. And this woman said, you might remember me. We were doing some work at Collins Place. I said, I remember you. How could I forget her? But after that, she abandoned the treatment, went and did nursing, changed her career, got married, had children. The new matron was requiring her to go above the 4th floor, but she was looking for me to write a letter to excuse her. Well, I did write a letter to excuse her, but on the grounds that she needed treatment and she got more treatment, and that became the problem. So we do make mistakes, all of us. I'm ashamed to think that I might have been able to help her if I hadn't frightened her off. But that's what happens. You've got to be ready for it. Okay, now how do I go with this here? So I'm not going to, I'm mainly concentrating on the strategies. That's what you want, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. So now this is an important one, which is called a cue card. What a cue card is, it's simply something you keep in your purse. It's not a safety behaviour like the value in your purse. It's actually a productive thing. And you can make up your own cue card, but this one is one I use. And so the cue word is aware. And so in this particular case, the A is for accepting the feeling, but just step back from it and see it as one of your feelings. It's a feeling. It's part of you. It's not all of you. When it totals you, that's when you have the overwhelming panic. But when you see it as part of you, then you go to the next letter, which is W, which we come down here to our subjective unit of stress. See that? 0 to 10. Is it high? Is it low? Is it moderate? Now, A is for, now this is not meant to be a permanent solution, but it's a very practical solution to tough it out. I'm going to act as if I'm not anxious. Just like if you're going in to ask your boss for a day off, perfectly normal that you'd ask the boss for a day off. But you're shaking in your hands because it happens to be the Friday before the long weekend and you want that 4 days. But you act as if it's a perfectly normal request. Do you agree? Or if perhaps another example, you're having a blue with your partner and the front door bell rings. By the time you reach that front door, you're all charmed and we're all having a lovely time, and in they come, but you're still furious with the other person. So this has got a role and as an immediate coping mechanism. The R refers in that particular case to 3 things: relax, shift attention, do something else. This thing under R, attentional focus, I'll come back to that later. It's one of the real keys to self-management. The last thing is, expect this to happen again, because emotional distress is part of us. You expect it, you wish it wasn't happening, but you know you can manage. You are learning about your high-risk situations and how to handle them better. Now, you can have your own cue card, which might be, this feeling will pass. Just sit with it, slow down your breathing. I'll handle this better if I stay calm. Shift attention elsewhere. There could just be a few key words like that you can slip in. Now, has anybody used this or tried it before? No, well, I do recommend it as a sometimes we ring our friend, to talk to them on the phone. But when you are having that rise in anxiety, take a break, pull out your cue card and reorientate yourself. Now, this is what we were talking about before. This is the theory behind exposure response prevention. So this is specially designed for you. You see a spider, your anxiety goes up like that. You run away quickly and your anxiety comes down. So avoidance is rewarded. But if you can sit with it and just observe it, over time, your anxiety will come down. It might take a day, or it might take 2 hours, it might take 10 minutes, who knows. But what I was mentioning before, that if you progressively do that, progressive trials and exposure lead to, say, if each one of these lines represented 20 exposures, your anxiety is not going to rise as high and will fall away more quickly. This is proven, and it's the #1 treatment for such phobias. Now sometimes if you're trying to do a desensitization thing like that, say people get anxious about crowded places, so they can't go to a crowded place and they get panicky, or people find it difficult to stand in a queue because they feel edgy or dizzy or they might faint. Now, one way that we try to help people with that is to accompany them. So you do a coach exposure, and then you watch the person do the exposure until they build up enough confidence that their anxiety is not peaking. There's no use peaking anxiety. You've got to keep it at that lower level. But when a person, say, gets down to a 5 or 6, okay, they're ready to start trying it on their own. Now, if you can't do it in reality, you do it in imagination. So, for example, you can't go halfway over the Westgate Bridge. So you've got to go over the Westgate Bridge in your imagination. Or nowadays there are these online programs, and you can go online. I haven't seen it for a few years now, but the one at Swinburne was Anxiety Online. There's another new, there's not a new one, but there's one called eCouch, which is ANU. And you can go on there. Now, in the Anxiety Online, they have a video there of a person walking into a large building, a crowded foyer, or a not so crowded foyer, and walking over, and you can see the frame of the lift, and push the button, see the lift doors open, and similarly, as if you're in the driver's seat of a car going over the Westgate Bridge, just to desensitise the person to that experience visually, and those places that are very highly set up are now using the virtual reality glasses, that they can put the glasses on and you can actually experience it as if. But they're very, very expensive to run. They're only available in research programs or very expensive programs. But you don't actually need it if you do this the way I'm talking about it. When you do exposure, you've got to do it in a very planned way, small steps, and have this idea of accompanied and unaccompanied. The accompaniment doesn't have to be a therapist. It can be a good friend, you know, somebody that's sensible that can come. Sometimes what happens now is people say, I can't go shopping unless I go with a friend. You know, Mum can't go shopping unless I take her. And that would happen a lot, wouldn't it? And this is unfortunate because Mum then becomes dependent, whereas it would be much better if she could walk down to the local shops at least. You can understand, you know, traffic and parking and things like that. But accompanied is only the step towards independence that I'm encouraging. All right, now, well, let's skip that. That's not really. So, problem-solving technique. This is a. Those things we talked about just now were behavioural type strategies. This is a cognitive strategy. So what is your problem? So you've got to, or problems, and what goal would you like to achieve? What's your target? Now, what are all the possible solutions that I could have? And so a person might say, I've lost my licence, so I've got a problem, I can't drive my car. What would you like to achieve? How do I get to work? Now, what are all the possible problems solving you could have? You know, go by public transport, ride a bike, get your wife or husband to drive you, pay somebody to drive you, use a, what are these, Uber, or these other cars that are parked on the sidelines, what do they call those things? Community cars. Get the idea? Then you try, you just bring up as many ideas as you can, then you get that piece of paper, put it down the middle, fors and againsts. This is, I'm very serious about this way of doing things. Decision making is paralysing. You've got to, the way you do it is to get your mind on it, because despite what I said at the beginning, I don't disbelieve psychodynamic therapy. I happen to believe in the power of the unconscious mind. So if you put ideas down on your paper, your unconscious mind's a lot smarter than you are. And you might find, you wake up in the morning, or how often does it happen at work, we've got a problem on our mind, go off and have lunch, read the paper, sit in the park, you're walking back and I know what I'm going to do. The problem jumps at you because the mind's still going 24/7. So what's the best, not the perfect solution? If you carry out this solution, and how will you know if it's working? Get feedback. That's it. This is a key point at number 6 rather. Have any of you heard of the therapy called ACT? Anybody heard of that?
Yeah.
It's one of the interesting things about ACT is it's very strong on values. You know, like when we were all trained in psychology and social work and counselling and all of the sort of the professions in the helping professions, you had to be very humanitarian. It's all, you know, just be very straight. But ACT has brought values back front and square in terms of getting people to talk about what's important to them. You know, whatever their values are, you know, like not supposed to talk about religion or spirituality and this sort of stuff, but it is a good thing to be clear about what's important to you. The second thing that they say is, am I prepared to take the steps to fulfill my values? So it's one thing to talk about what your values are. Just like here, I know what the solution is, I've worked it all out, but am I going to take the steps necessary to meet that solution? Now that applies across the board. We can say, yes, I've decided I'm going to do a course, I've got time to do a course, I'm going to do a course. The next step is plan the course, see what's available, what can I afford, what can I get into, and there's a lot of follow through beyond that first wish that I want to do something. Okay, so problem solving. Did I jump to them? No. Now look, again, I'm not so sure that I want to develop this particularly. I just want to say this much about worry. Generalised anxiety disorder is the major anxiety disorder. And it's the problem chronic worry. And so this person hasn't got time to read a book or hasn't got time to watch a movie. They're just always busy, always got something on their mind. And if they weren't worrying about that, they'd worry about something else. So most people worry about the same sorts of things. But the chronic worrier, like generalised anxiety disorder worrier, worries at a higher intensity. So they're up here in the 6 to 10 all the time. Other people might still worry about things from time to time, but it doesn't stop them from doing a whole lot of other things. Whereas the chronic worrier is worrying most of the time. So that's the main distinguishing feature. The second thing is that they also worry about what this worry is doing to them. What am I coming to? And it's like they can still see from the outside I'm a terrible worrier, but I don't know how to do anything about it. And whereas the one that's not a chronic worrier is able to shift focus to other things, enjoy this or that, watch a movie, play, you know, visit friends and things like that. But the chronic worrier has always got that stress on their mind. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So what we've got to try and do is we've got to try and shift attention away from the worry to other things. And that's where mindfulness comes into play. Now I'm sure you're sick to death of hearing about mindfulness. Let it be lively. I remember when it first started back in the 80s, but it didn't take fire until about 2000. And I went to a conference in the United States, and the people at the conference were arguing the point whether CBT was finished now because we had mindfulness. And mindfulness meant you just let everything go. You just don't worry about it. And there were all these serene-looking people wandering around and saying, we've been doing this for years, we call it yoga. Haven't you ever heard of it? There was quite a lot of angst about it. But I saw something the other day which really impressed me about it. And if you want to, like, two things I'll say. I have on my website a 6-minute mindfulness tape, which you're welcome to download it if you want. And people put it on their phone, and they just nothing fancy about it. It's just watching. It's called the breath exercise, and anybody that knows anything about it knows that it's just observing the rhythm of your body. Rise, breathing in, fall, breathing out. And there's no right way or wrong way to do it. Breath comes in, breath goes out, and you just observe it. But what you know is going to happen is the mind wanders, because that's what minds do. They just go all over the place. But what we've got to do is say, when our mind wanders, not if our mind wanders, no, when our mind wanders, we refocus. And that's what you do without end. Now, what I saw in the paper, in this book, which is I might recommend to people, that when this book came out, I'm switching genres here a little bit. When this book came out, it was called Mindfulness-Based Cognitive Therapy for Depression. It was a 7-year study, and the theme of that study was that depression was a relapsing, recurring condition. So what their theme using mindfulness was to pick up mood shifts, pick up tension, pick up heaviness, pick up slowness, that sort of thing that you might have a few days before until one morning you wake up and you can't get out of bed because depression has hit you. And we know that first episode of depression is a 50% likelihood you'll have a second episode. Second episode, there's a 60 or 70% you'll have a third episode. And I'm talking about quite a heavy episode. So they designed this 8-session program, which I believe is run in the clinic here. Anybody from the clinic here? I think that what they call it is MBCT. Have you heard of it? Yeah. So they wrote this book, and it was a technical book summarising all their research. Then a couple of years later, they published a book called The Mindful Path, which was a pop version of this book. Very good book. Now, but just in 2014, they put out a book called The Mindful Path Workbook. Now that's the book I'm recommending. And it's by Teasdale. Teasdale, Segal, and the guru of them all is Kabat-Zinn. We all know him. But these are all, I might say, very serene people. Sweet, nice people. But anyway, one of the people in this wrote something which I think is terrific. And I'm going to put it up here and invite you to take it down. One is the first thing we do is pay attention. The teachers were right. They always told us if only Johnny would pay attention, he'd be a genius. Pay attention to what you're doing. So the focus of your attention. Now, the second thing was give it 100%, as much as you can. I mean, you can't. You like to say you can do one thing at a time, but you usually are multitasking a little bit. But the main frame, give it 100%. Now, I've already said this, when your mind drifts, refocus. 4, repeat 3, several billion times. Now that probably would take 5 or 10 years maybe. I don't know, several billion I said. Not a million, I said they're million. Several billion. Okay, the last thing is, what we're all doing here tonight, is investigating our distractions. What is on your mind? You know, what is preoccupying you? Because that's what takes you off track, doesn't it? So I think that's the main thing to do, is this. When your mind drifts from what you're paying attention to, repeat it several billion times. Do you like that? It's pretty simple. It's pretty simple, but that'll make a great cue card, actually. Pay attention, 100% focus. Mind drifts, refocus. Repeat several billion times, investigate distractions. That's it.
When you say your mind drifts, refocus, do you mean refocus on your breath?
Well, if that's what you're paying attention to. Could be your book, could be your study program. It's whatever you're focusing on. Could be paying attention to your partner talking. No, don't you get told that? You're not listening to me.
I was just going to say something. When I did the 2 weeks programming here at the clinic, the Depression and Anxiety Clinic, and with my husband had been telling me to be mindful for years, and I was going to smack him across the head if he said it to me one more time, because I felt as if it meant...
It causes a lot of fights.
I felt as if I thought what it meant was to clear my mind, and it's like, well, how do I clear my mind? And when I did the 2-week program here, one of the things that the therapist did with the group, I don't know if they still do it, but it really helped me, was that she just simply said it's just about focusing on whatever it is you're doing fully, and then she got us to try it with different things. So she played music really loud, and we just had to try and concentrate just on the music. And then at the end of that little 60-second thing, she said, so who found music? And some people were like, yeah, I could really just focus on the music. And then she did it with chocolate, like just having chocolate in your mouth, and that for me was a really important thing, because I thought actually it's not clearing my mind, it's just focusing. So another thing was to smell a flower and just look at a flower. So, whereas I'd always thought I had to clear my mind, as opposed to focusing my mind on whatever flower.
So that is the key to mindfulness, is it's awareness of something very specific. You pay attention to it on purpose. Remember that we used to say that as you did that on purpose. we were all very mindful in those days then. We didn't realise it. But there's a famous raising exercise that some of you would have experienced, that Kabat-Zinn designed, that people have to hand the raisin around and look at it as if they'd come from Mars and examine it. Put it on their tongue, whereas how do we eat raisins? We just toss them in by the handful. So it's actually quite a clever play on how he does it. Now, I want to forget that. That's not. We don't need to do that. This is people. It's just an avoidance mechanism. So those who came a little bit late will realise that we had to improvise here today because of my incompetence. Now, this is you probably can't read that. No. All right, I'll just. This is a kind of experiment we give to people as homework. So, for example, what's the situation? What are you predicting will happen? So we design an experiment. What are you doing to test your prediction? What actually happened and what did you learn? So I'll just go through it. The issues between Helen and I remain unresolved. This is just one I did with some patient. I hope Helen, who's not here, no, she didn't. No shift in attitude by us. She goes into manager mode. I really hate it. Start my violent reaction of shutting down. Still prepared to keep trying to improve things, only one life to live. So in other words, when we're trying to solve our problem, one becomes managerial, the other shuts down, whichever way. You can guess which way it would be. Now, it seems there's never enough time to implement change. Helen at Ops's direct approach can be nasty but effective. Leaves me feeling like a child or more an employee. I need to keep working together to make even small changes, point out what it is in their own behaviour that is off. Bring a list of prompt points to the next session. Experiment, we have to agree to set a time to discuss. We've got to take an attitude of collaboration and not getting anxious by being too focused on our symptoms. You know, in other words, if I'm panicky, oh my God, you know, I can't think clearly. I expect to be anxious, so I'm going to stick to the plan. I'm 75% certain I can do this. Now that's a technical point. What we mean by that, if you're a betting person, 50-50 is no good. Go either way. 100% can't get the odds for that because that's a certainty. Okay? 75% is 3 out of 4 chances you're going to get there. You've just got to, so if you're 75% certain you can achieve what you're aiming at, you're close enough to have a go. Do you get that? Now, if you're not 75% certain, you might add an extra step. You know how we mentioned before about going to the busy shopping centre, saying, oh, I don't know, well, last time I went I had such a bad experience. So, okay, what if somebody went with you? Yeah, okay, I'm 75% I could do it if somebody nearby. You with me? So you want to get it up to that 75%. You try to sort out the concerns, but each one has to be prepared to listen, even to explain. Now, what do? We kept to the plan. Prediction of anxiety and stress was only partly true as we kept to the plan. The anxiety seemed better when the task goal was reachable, 75%. Once we got started, our mood settled, and I felt good about finally doing something about my issue and my communication style with Helen. Now, what do we learn? I know the problem of getting too agitated beforehand. Learning not to be in my head with worry, rather focus attentions on the small steps to be done. You get what I mean by that? What I mean is that when we're talking to another person, if we're buzzing in our head, we don't even hear what they say. So what do you actually say? Well, I don't know, I was somewhere else. So too many times in communication, a person has got that second voice. He doesn't care what you think. He's just going through the motions. You know, he's not even listening. And so you get that. You can't hear if you've got a second conversation running. Doing something for each other each day is worth trying. See myself as others see me. That's a gift that would keep me changing. Keep open to the possibility of healing. That is actually a classic a copy from Robbie Burns, who said, to see ourselves as others see us, what a gift that would be, how much strife it would save us. He wrote that in the 17th century, but it's pretty true even now, isn't it? To be able to step back and see how you're affecting other people. Bloody hell, that'd save us from a lot of some embarrassment, wouldn't it? Especially after we've had a few drinks. Now, this is if I can do a slight advertisement. I wrote a book back in 2014, and I can't say it flew off the shelves. In fact, I think it might even be out of print. But anyway, it's on my web. I'm going to put up some of the things that are on the dummies. You know the dummy series? It was one of those. So it's not sort of high class. But it's good. There's some good stuff in it. This is straight out of that book. So here's 7 ways to deal with emotional distress. So accept that all kinds of thoughts, good and bad, come to your mind as part of normal experience. And it's a feature of anxiety. In normal experience,
they pop in and pop out. But when mood is low, more persistent and disturbing, bad thought equals bad mind equals bad person. Now, anybody that's got OCD or has had any OCD will know exactly what I'm talking about. That a thought is real. It's not just a thought, it means something. Whereas everybody has weird, strange, crazy thoughts. But most of us, when we have it, say, what? Where'd that come from? And just let it go through to the keeper. But the person who's obsessional cannot let that go. Review, check, ask other people, worry about it, try and block that thought. Take a step back. Now, we've said this before. Try to use a cue card to remember something that helps. I'm separate from my thoughts. Now, I don't know how much time we've got, not much time, but let's just spend a little bit of time on breathing. This is very important. This breathing one there's a million strategies for breathing. But this particular one, well, I told you about the 5-minute one on my site, so you can have a look at that if you want. But this one is one where you breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold. Then you exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, as long as you can to get the carbon dioxide out of your system. Because when we do the first breath management, anxiety management task we do is count your breaths. So on a count of a minute, I get people to count the number of times a diaphragm falls. Now, the range will be anything from 8 to 30, and even more. But when a person is breathing at 30 breaths a minute, that's like having an engine running 3 times the normal ratio. Now, what you've got to do is get that breath down. Now, the way you get the breath down is by implementing a 6-second cycle of breathing. Now, all you can, I can teach you that right now. You just go in, 2, 3, out, 2, 3. It's actually, look, it'll be on my downloads as well. I'm not looking for business, I'm just telling you where it is. But there are 2 different ones. One is where I say, I want you to just follow my count, and I just go like this. In, 2, 3, out, 2, 3, in, 2, 3, out, 2, 3. Now, it's actually just acquiring that ability to breathe at that rate when you need to. Our average breathing could be anything from 6 to 15, but when you want to properly circulate oxygen throughout your body, it's got to be around the 10 or 12 mark, 10 or 12 breaths a minute. Now, I've worked that out over the years, because the Jacobson technique for breathing, which is, you may remember, start at your feet, relax your feet, relax your ankles, relax your calves, blah, blah, blah. Up you go. It takes about 45 minutes to do it. They had that 6-second cycle. That was their method. Then along came mindfulness, which said, just watch your breath. Just watch the rise, breathing in, and the fall, breathing out. Now, over the years, because I've been teaching it to most of the patients I see, it suddenly dawned on me one day that rise, breathing, rise, breathing in, fall, breathing out. Rise, breathing in, out, 2, 3. In, 2, 3. What is it?
Out.
Fall, breathing out. They were the same meter One was from mindfulness, which is yoga, Eastern, all that serene stuff, whereas the other one was Jacobson from the States. Now, there's another field of Buteyko breathing. Anybody heard of that?
Yeah.
For people with asthma. And I heard a talk one night by an instructor, and he said the lungs hold about 15 litres of gas. And so they have this idea of taking a breath and then pausing for as long as you can before you take another breath. The idea is to train the body to use the oxygen in the lungs. And anyway, I put my hand up and I said, how many breaths would it take to keep that average of 15 litres in the lungs? And he said about 10 or 12. Now, Buteyko was a Russian physiologist. So my figuring that the lungs of the north, the lungs of the east, and the lungs of the west are all the same. We all want to breathe roughly that time. And all I want to be able to say to you is, if you're going into a meeting, just check your breathing. Because if you go into that meeting breathing at 10 or 12 breaths a minute, you'll be fine. But we go into the meeting and we're 15, somebody asks us a question, we're 20, next thing we're rushing out of the room. Is that correct?
Does that faster breathing then create like messages to the brain that then creates this whole stress cycle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if when the latest talk is neuroscience, everybody's crazy about neuroscience. So what they're saying is that when you're agitated, your amygdala lights up, oxygenation, blood flow, energy, and so on. But it's the neurotransmitters of cortisol, noradrenaline, adrenaline, all this flood in, and the cortex, which is the working brain, all your experience, things that have worked for you before, not available because business is all up here in the survival mode. So that's what you want to do. So if you're having a fight at work about whether we should cut overtime in order to let the company get a profit, or it's all right for you, you're having a family at home to feed, and next one would you like to step outside and discuss this, next thing you've got a brawl on your hand, because it's all, if you took a functional MRI, their amygdalas are on fire, and all of their negotiation skills out the door. This happens in our homes too. So what they found was that using Buddhist monks and people who'd learned mindfulness, they tracked it over a 3-month period. The Buddhists, of course, kicked everybody. They were amazing. But anybody that practiced for 5 to 15 minutes a day of mindfulness, they had a definite significant change in their MRI. So in other words, the distribution of blood flow, oxygenation and energy in the brain was much more normal. So the cortex was available. So to use the terminology of the neuroscientists, the amygdala is for survival. So you thrive but the cortex is to thrive. Survive, amygdala, thrive, cortex. You've got to have that brain working, where you can throw up other ideas and so on.
The study with the monks, was that done just by one lot of researchers, or was it really?
Look, there's a lot of research being done on mindfulness now. I can't give you the reference.
Yeah.
I read about that. Yeah. Okay, now I think we're running. Are we running? How are we going? A bit longer.
Yeah, please.
All right. Okay, now let me just see what else we've got here. Yeah, now, okay, so this is an important part. You know how I mentioned before, if you talk about mindfulness, and I'm a great fan of mindfulness, so when I say, it's not as if we haven't heard of it before. there's meditation, there's a thing called being in the zone that we're very familiar with in the West before mindfulness kind of came along. But what this idea is, that what I say to people, when I see people, I say, where do you feel it when you're agitated, when you're upset? Where do you feel it? Now people will say, straight away, in my stomach, in my chest, in my jaw, they go straight to it. Whereas if you do Jacobson's body, what do you call them, what do you used to call it? Progressive muscle relaxation. If you've got 40 minutes to spare, yeah, fine, you do that, go and track it all through. Same thing with mindfulness, the breath and body exercise. You do the first part and then you track the breath down the hip, around the hip, under the knee, around the knee. Any tension, any heaviness, any blockage, focusing on it, breathe into that space and away from that space. Are you with me? Another 40 minutes to go right through the whole body. But if you cut to the chase and say, where do you feel it? And say, I feel it in my chest. Okay, what we'll do is a 10-minute exercise of up, the rise and fall, that then we'll do breathe into that tension on the in-breath and away from the tension on the out-breath. Now look, it's very hard to conceptualise it. This is an experiential thing. But if you try it, then if you feel tension in your shoulders, and I say, breathe into it and breathe away from it. Breathe into it to soften it. Breathe away from it to open up space. It's metaphorical. Get that? But it's just like sitting down in your deck chair and not just, what do you call it, hanging out, you know, just lay back. But this is much more specific because it's actually that breathing into a part. This is a hypnotic, this is done in hypnosis as well. But if you focus on the part that you want to target, that the body actually, the little blood vessels open. And so if you say in hypnosis, you concentrate on your left hand, you're going to feel it getting warmer. I mean, it's a common, we know it's going to get warmer because the veins are opening because of the focus on it. Breathe into it, breathe away from it. It's exactly the same sort of idea. But you can do it, just try it. And when I was first looking into it, I was watching this is in about 2003, I was watching my football team, which is Melbourne, getting their pants spanked by someone, and it was quarter time. And you know what it's like at quarter time, people are moving in and out. I had this sort of pain across my eye from not another 80-point thrashing or something. And I was just standing there, and I did that, breathe into my eyes and away from my eyes, just for a few minutes. And it absolutely, I mean, our team didn't improve, but it did show me that this had something, it had some legs, this particular thing. So I'm just inviting you to try it. Where do you feel it? A lot of guys feel it in their jaw, you know, and you can soften it in the way that I've described. But if you've got other things which we would describe as tics, you know, where you clench your jaw, or if you ever notice people go like that, you talk to them, they're not even aware of it. I haven't seen anyone do it yet. Pleased to know. But do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Have you ever seen that? You can actually teach a person to when they do that, and you tell them they do it, that what they can do is add tension. Just clench, hold, release. Same as if as I said, the jaw, you're tightening your jaw. So tense, hold, release. every time you notice it, then what you do is you try to get it closer and closer to the time, and then you do it instead of the clenching. Now, I mean, it sounds complicated, but it's actually not all that complicated. But if you notice your little one doing it, you know, little kids develop little habits, you know, flick, flick, or whatever they do, you know, of their hair or twirling or whatever. This is the fundamental thing that separates us, the opposing digit. So when you've done that, tense, hold, release, you just fade it. But that behaviour will come back. But when it comes back, you do the same thing again. You've got control over it by transferring the training to something that you can later fade. And nobody actually, if you're doing that, if you're in a meeting and you're feeling pretty uptight, you can do that. Tense, hold, release as a trigger to release tension in your whole body. That's quite easily done.
All right, let's see what else we've got. So this is the idea here of being open to experiences. Don't shut them down, learn something from them. Can you notice that you can soften the impact by shifting attention away? Not impulse, but knowing what is really important to get yourself back in touch with what engages you. So the negative stuff does not stop you engaging in life. And really, we have got to look at the good parts of our life. There's so much negative in everybody's life. Try looking at the good parts, enjoy them, and, you know, try and handle things like Christmas is about 13 or 14 weeks away, isn't it? Okay, you've got to plan it. Please don't go there all day. Don't start drinking at 10 o'clock in the morning because you'll be fighting and arguing by 2. So you drop in, exchange the presents and move on. You've got to plan it. It's lovely to get together, but it can be tiring. Now think about yourself, you know, you've got to tune in on yourself. Remember I was saying that before, where do you feel it? Am I more irritable? Am I not wanting to see people? Am I not sleeping, eating or exercise? Have I lost my curiosity about trying new things? Very good question. Are you losing your curiosity? Never do that, because there's so much to learn, see and experience. Hobbies, outings, reading again. Do I laugh much? Am I not opening mail, checking emails, answering the phone? Can you sense the swing back between what's almost normal and emotionally overwhelmed? I went to a post-traumatic stress conference at Melbourne Uni about a long time ago. This guy was, he gave this paper and he had a big stress thing up. I'll show you what I mean. And so he said that, so you've got this thing that we've all got. I mean, it's just inevitable. That we've got stress coming down. So, but what does stress do? It destabilises. In all those ways that are being described there. So you've got this process going on, where you're swinging, and you can be at any stage on that process between almost normal, you know what I said before about acting as if, you can act as if you're normal. You know, I've seen that many a time in the clinic. You walk past the dining room in the clinic and see all the people who are here because they're inpatients, not functioning well, but they look chatting and laughing and talking together as if everything's fine. But within minutes, a person can be emotionally overwhelmed. that's the process that we've got to try and reintegrate the person to get them back to the better parts of themselves, because this stuff, I mean, you might be here, you might be here, you might be here, but you're fluctuating within minutes. Does that make sense to people? You just feel unstable. You know, you're not functioning and quick to tears or quick to anger or whatever the case may be. So avoidance and escape are not the way to deal with emotions. Therefore, learn your skills to better manage the challenges faced by worry, fear and trauma. Stay close to those who care, set goals for yourself, however small, you're doing something to help. Keep practicing present moment living, and you've got to accept the suffering part, yet be able to laugh and fun and experiences of life. So there is a suffering part of life. Suffering in the sense of enduring. You know, I don't mean we're getting belted up every second day. I mean just putting up with. Now this is CBT in verse. I found this somewhere and modified it a little bit. One ship sails east, another sails west, both with the same breezes blowing. 'Tis the set of the sails, not the force of the gales, that takes them where they're going. So that's what we're trying to change, is the set of our sails. How do you see things? That's what we're looking at. Okay. Now let's have some questions.
Where did you get that verse from, Chris?
It was in a just in one of those little. It was a little book with all sorts of reflections. It was. Yeah, it jumped out at me. No questions?
It seems as if you're saying that breath regulation is critically important in the treatment of anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I haven't talked about exercise tonight. There's a. I have got a thing here which I'll show you. We've got. If I may say, this is in my book as well, but it's not original. I read this research where what they did was, and this can be incorporated in anybody's work. I saw this person once who had a very deep guttural sort of. She was as if she was trying to clear something out of her throat. And she'd had all the, the endoscopes, whatever you call them, down the throat, all that looking. And then they try all the different things and finally they said, well, it must be psychological. Send them to a psychologist. So the person came in and, in between these, I thought, gee, what am I going to do here? So I started her off on this program, which is a program which is based on hyperventilating. So what you do when you hyperventilate, you're trying to recapture what happens when a person has a panic attack. But you're doing it in a graded way. And so in this particular one, what you did was you started off. Level 1 was 10 to 20 seconds of deep chest breathing. Really pumping it out like that. 15 seconds rest, 10 seconds of deep chest breathing, 15 seconds rest, another 10 seconds. So that's a 30, about a minute or so. But the person had 2 scores that they had to count. It had to be 0 to 10 on how much distress and 0 to 10 on similarity to other sources of
panic or distress or anxiety. So when both those scores or either of those scores got below 5, they kicked it up to 15 seconds. 15 seconds rest, 15 seconds, 15 seconds rest. And there was a slow build up, 20 seconds, 15 seconds rest, 20 seconds, 15 seconds. But you kept that's level 1. And level 2 was 20 to 40. And level 3 was 40 to 60 plus. Now you can imagine doing that for a minute and 15 seconds rest, and by the time you're coming up to the second minute, you're still recovering. But you've built that up over 7 or 8 weeks. Now what the outcome of the study was, this was my variation of the study. The original study was injecting carbon dioxide enriched oxygen into the bloodstream. They were bringing it on by artificial means. But we didn't have the capacity to do that. And anyway, nothing's more reliable to hyperventilate than that heavy chest breathing. But what happened after the study was that the person's response to hyperventilation was the exercises were seen as physiologically harmless because they built up resistance over that period of time. But the second part of it that was very much more important was the catastrophic thoughts dropped out. So I really encourage, there's something you can do on a self-help basis, like for example, you can be on an exercise bike and just warm up for a minute or something and then go like the clappers, for 10 seconds, and you've got your phone down there with tick, tick, ticking on, 15 seconds rest, and go again, 15 seconds rest, go again. But you've got to build it up gradually. Now, you don't have to do that sort of thing. You can just go for a half an hour walk or go for a run or whatever it might be. But exercise is equally as powerful in dealing with depression and emotional distress as CBT or medication. That's been proven now. So we must exercise. Anything you read about any chronic disease, the first thing they say is exercise. The first advice. So it's not done. A hospital like this, if I may say, should have a gym, should have games, should have places where people can pump, and they would be much more. So that's one form of exercise. The other part is social engagement. Join a mixed netball club or go walking. There's lots of these things like, anybody familiar with Meetup? Yeah, it's a whole wide range of things, but it's bike riding groups, walking groups, where people are organised through an app. And so social engagement, honestly, we're the only creatures on this earth who actually have a chat, talk, relate to each other. I mean, maybe the apes do it in some way, I don't know. But I don't think they do it like we do. They don't send emails around. You know what I'm getting at? It can't, you must engage socially if you want to be healthy. Have friends, a friend. The number of people that just lock themselves away in their room is really frightening. And that's agoraphobia, of course, at its worst.
I was going to ask you, if it's okay, just along the lines of that, actually, just the first, what you would recommend, I guess, the first step for someone that's, I guess, no longer like one of the steps that you had to like enjoying life and going out and doing that sort of stuff. And
yeah.
I've also got borderline personality disorder and eating disorder as well, and anxiety and kind of mixed in, and I no longer sort of read, watch TV, go out. I only kind of go out to appointments, medical appointments, so I sort of lost my love of dancing and other things and anything.
You haven't lost your love of it.
Well, I
you're just not
haven't,
doing
but
it.
I'm just not doing it, and I don't know where to start, or my anxiety's kind of like not leaving the house.
Yeah, well, look, you've got a good therapist.
Yes.
Yeah. And the therapist would be encouraging you to join support groups. Like, for example, if you were an inpatient here, you can
I
have...
do DBT.
Yes, and you probably have had outreach people coming. But there are, Jim would be able to speak at more length about it, but there are support groups dotted around Melbourne for anxiety and OCD, all different types of, and actually there's no waiting lists, you know.
Yeah.
You just have to ring up and somebody will meet you and take you in, and I really do encourage that. The other thing to try is the online stuff, you know, through that one I mentioned, eCouch, Anxiety Online. But that, you must never give up on that. And the problem is that when you're at a low ebb, you just lose your, you've had enough knockbacks, you know, and, but there are people who care.
Yeah.
And there are resources available, and it's good that the DBT program is an excellent program, and you can learn a lot about self-management in that program. But I do think there's a lot of, we've got to do a lot of work in our community about having, we had a talk recently where there's a program in England where they've had people gathering just at a sort of a cafe, and people are at different tables, but they might be working on a little project or problem solving or something. Others are having a cup of coffee, but it's very much a natural environment rather than a formal coming to a clinic or sitting around a table. When I saw it, I thought, gee, I'd love to try that. Just say a cafe or a space that was like a cafe, say at a university during the long DAC, which there'd be plenty of cafe space where you could just invite people to come in and just be ordinary, you know, and buy a coffee and have a chat to people, but then also do an exercise or two. We could easily do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were saying before about amygdala and cortex and things like that. As a result of meningitis feedback, apparently my right prefrontal cortex with the amygdala and things have all boiled away. What sort of behaviours could manifest from that?
Gee, that's too technical for me. I mean, the brain is very adaptive. And that's one of the things they talk about with neuroplasticity, isn't it? That other parts of the brain take over the functioning. But I mean, I would make the same observation that I think we've got to relate to other people. We've got to try to get interests and engage in things, you know. Like we were talking a minute ago about Meetup. You know, I know for sure that there are movie groups. Like sometimes people will talk to me about the things they do, and one I always remember this person said, we have a group of people, there are 6 of us, and 3 times a year we go to a movie on a 5 o'clock session, and then the following Saturday we meet for breakfast to discuss that movie. They just do it 3 times a year. It doesn't that sound like a good idea? You know, it's not as if you're going, well, I've got to wonder what we're going to talk about. I'm not going to ask me how I am, you know, or what job I'm doing. None of that. We're talking about the movie, which I'm not answering your question very specifically, but we've got to try to stay engaged, basically.
I'm not trying to horn in here, but I'm just making the observation that Dr. Mogan's been on his feet for an hour and a half. And what time did you start this morning, Chris? Would you like to confide on us?
That's normal.
Very early, I'm sure. So unless there are any other very pressing and urgent questions, no? All right. Chris, thank you very, very much. I mean, I always find, even after all the years of listening to you, I find that I'm learning more and more, and there's always new things that I learn. And I find that I not only learn new techniques, but I also learn new philosophies and ways of thinking, which I think is something that not all psychologists are capable of getting across and communicating, but I know you do it, and I look forward to your talks all the time. So thank you very much for that. Did you all learn something or had the same feeling as I did?
Yeah.
There was one question there.
Just, should you put up your website that you've
Yeah.
referred to a few times? Yeah.
It's Mogan. It's not Morgan. It's Mogan. At one word, the anxiety clinic.
That's your email address. What's the website? No, is it just the anxiety clinic?
Oh, yeah, sorry. theanxietyclinic.com.
And I can tell you that if you Google that, it will take you straight to the website.
Right.
So all the information will be there.
Thank you.
I've got to make sure that I've got to get some of the other things up. But the 5-minute things up, and progressive muscle relaxation tape is there. And I'll get these other things up next day.
Look, I'd like to present you with, actually, it's a very important week next week. Does anybody know what it is, by the way? Mental Health Week. Isn't that strange? I did tutor you very well, didn't I? But from the 8th to the 15th, and it's a very important week. And we have our first bag that I'm going to present to you, Chris. And it actually has just a little something in it. We're not allowed to sort of encourage alcohol on the roads, but nevertheless, a glass of red wine, I'm sure, will do it. Can I just ask, have you been handed around a support group? Because there was a lady asking earlier on. These are support groups that the Mental Health Foundation of Australia runs.